CEO saw Maid with twins, searching trash on Christmas Eve. Their lives changed forever. The snowflakes fell like tiny diamonds against the window of the executive boardroom on the 42nd floor, but Marcus Sterling couldn't appreciate their beauty. As CEO of Sterling Industries, one of the nation's largest manufacturing companies, he had just finished the most difficult board meeting of his career. The company was thriving, profits were at an all-time high, but something felt hollow about his success. At 52, divorced and estranged from his own children, Marcus had everything money could buy but nothing that truly mattered. It was Christmas Eve, and while most people were home with their families, Marcus was still at the office, drowning himself in quarterly reports and merger proposals. The building was nearly empty, save for the skeleton crew of security, guards and cleaning staff who worked through the holidays. As he packed up his briefcase around midnight, preparing to return to his empty penthouse, he decided to take one last walk through the building, something he rarely did. If this story touches your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to Trillionaire in Love for more inspiring stories that will change your perspective on life. The executive floors were pristine and silent, but as Marcus made his way down to the lower levels, he began to hear something unusual, the sound of rustling papers and quiet whispers. Following the noise, he found himself near the service entrance, where the building's dumpsters were located. Through the frosted glass door, he could make out three small figures huddled together in the cold. His first instinct was to call security, assuming it was trespassing, but something made him pause. Through the glass, he could see it was a woman and two small children, and they appeared to be searching through the trash bins. The woman looked familiar, and as he stepped closer to get a better look, recognition hit him like a thunderbolt. It was Maria Santos, one of the night cleaning crew who had worked in his building for over 3 years. Marcus had seen Maria countless times during his late nights at the office. She was always polite, always smiled despite looking exhausted, and somehow managed to keep the executive floors spotless while most of the city slept. But seeing her here on Christmas Eve, with what appeared to be her twin children, searching through garbage for food, shattered something inside him. The twins couldn't have been more than 7 years old, a boy and a girl with Maria's dark eyes and gentle features. They were thin, too thin, and dressed in clothes that had clearly seen better days. The little girl's jacket was torn at the sleeve, and the boy's shoes had holes that let in the snow. Maria was carefully sorting through the contents of the dumpster, looking for anything edible that the building's cafeteria might have thrown away. Marcus stood frozen for several minutes watching this scene unfold. Here he was, a man worth hundreds of millions, watching a woman who cleaned his office feed her children from the trash on Christmas Eve. The contrast was stark and painful. He thought about his own childhood, growing up poor with a single mother who worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table. He remembered the hunger, the shame, the constant worry about where the next meal would come from. Somewhere along his climb to success, he had forgotten those feelings, forgotten what it meant to struggle for basic survival, unable to stand by any longer. Marcus pushed open the door and stepped into the cold night air. The family looked up in alarm, Maria's eyes widening with recognition and fear. She quickly pulled her children behind her protectively, expecting to be scolded or fired for being on company property after hours. "Mr. Sterling," Maria stammered, her breath visible in the cold air. "I'm sorry, sir. The children were hungry, and I thought maybe the cafeteria had thrown away some bread or—" Her voice trailed off and she looked down at her feet in shame. Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Maria, isn't it? You work on the executive floor." She nodded, still not meeting his eyes. "These are your children?" "Yes, sir. Isabella and Diego, they're twins, they're 7. She pulled them closer to her. "I'm sorry we're here. We'll leave right away." "Wait," Marcus said softly, his mind racing. Are you homeless?" Maria's silence was answer enough. She finally looked up at him, and he could see the exhaustion and desperation in her eyes, but also the fierce determination of a mother who would do anything to protect her children. "We lost our apartment 3 weeks ago," she whispered. "I couldn't make rent after Diego got sick and I had to miss work to take him to the hospital. We've been staying in my car, but it broke down yesterday. I've been trying to find another place, but everywhere wants first month, last month, and a deposit. And Her voice broke and she pulled her children even closer. Marcus looked at the twins who were staring up at him with wide, curious eyes. Despite their circumstances, they seemed remarkably well-behaved and clean. Maria had clearly been doing everything she could to maintain their dignity and care for them, even in the most desperate circumstances. "Why didn't you come to me?" Marcus asked. "Or to HR? We have emergency assistance programs for employees." Maria shook her head. "I was afraid I'd lose my job. This is the only work I could find that pays enough to almost support us. I cleaned 4 buildings every night and I was scared that if anyone knew about our situation, they'd think I couldn't do my job properly." The weight of her words hit Marcus hard. Here was a woman working multiple jobs, doing everything right, and still falling through the cracks of a system that was supposed to protect people like her. Meanwhile, he was sitting in his ivory tower, completely oblivious to the struggles of the people who made his comfortable life possible. "Come with me," Marcus said firmly. "Sir, please don't fire me," Maria pleaded. "It's Christmas Eve and I have nowhere else to turn. I promise this won't happen again." "I'm not firing you, Maria. I'm taking you and your children somewhere warm." He looked down at Isabella and Diego, who were shivering in the cold. "When was the last time you had a proper meal?" The twins looked at their mother, who hesitated before answering. "Yesterday morning, I bought them each a small breakfast sandwich from the gas station." Marcus felt anger rising in his chest, not at Maria but at himself and the system that had allowed this to happen. "Follow me," he said, leading them back into the building. He took them to the executive cafeteria on the 20th floor, using his keycard to access the kitchen. While Maria protested that she couldn't let him do this, Marcus began pulling ingredients from the industrial-sized refrigerators. He wasn't much of a cook, but he could manage sandwiches and soup. As he worked, he learned more about Maria's story. She had immigrated from Guatemala 5 years earlier, fleeing violence and poverty with her newborn twins. She had no family in the United States, no support system, and limited English skills when she arrived. Through sheer determination, she had learned English, found work, and managed to create a stable life for her children. She had been saving money for nursing school, hoping to build a better future for Isabella and Diego, but life had dealt her a series of crushing blows. First, Diego had developed asthma and required expensive medication and regular doctor visits. Then Isabella had needed glasses, another unexpected expense. Finally, when Diego had a severe asthma attack that required a trip to the emergency room, Maria had been forced to miss work and eventually lost the delicate balance she had maintained. "I never wanted charity," Maria said as her children ate their first real meal in days. "I just wanted the chance to work and take care of my family." As Marcus watched the twins devour their sandwiches, carefully saving half for later, a heartbreaking habit they had developed, he realized that everything he thought he knew about success and happiness was wrong. Here was a woman who, despite having almost nothing, had raised 2 polite, loving, grateful children. She had never asked for handouts, never complained about her situation, just quietly worked multiple jobs and did her best to survive. The challenges Maria faced were overwhelming. Beyond the immediate need for housing and food security, there were long-term obstacles that seemed insurmountable. Without a permanent address, the twins couldn't consistently attend school. Without stable housing, Maria couldn't qualify for better-paying jobs. Without better-paying jobs, she couldn't afford stable housing. It was a vicious cycle that trapped millions of working families in poverty, invisible to those who had never experienced such struggles. Diego's asthma required consistent medical care and expensive medications. Isabella, despite being incredibly bright, was falling behind in school because of their unstable living situation. Maria herself was exhausted from working multiple jobs and sleeping in cars, which affected her ability to perform at her best and pursue her dreams of furthering her education. But perhaps the biggest challenge was the isolation and shame that came with their situation. Maria had no friends to turn to, no family support system, and felt too proud to ask for help from the few acquaintances she had made. She carried the weight of her family's survival entirely on her shoulders, believing that any sign of weakness or need would result in losing the little stability she had managed to create. As Christmas morning dawned, Marcus made a decision that would change all their lives forever. He didn't just offer Maria and her children temporary help. He committed to addressing the root causes of their struggles. Using his resources and connections, he secured them a comfortable apartment in a good neighborhood with excellent schools. He established a trust fund for the twins' education and arranged for Diego's medical care through the company's executive health plan. But Marcus's transformation went beyond simple charity. Inspired by Maria's strength and determination, he implemented sweeping changes at Sterling Industries. He increased wages for all hourly employees, established an emergency assistance fund for workers facing hardship, and created an on-site childcare facility for employees' children. He also began partnering with local organizations to address homelessness and poverty in their community. For Maria, the changes were life-altering. With stable housing and financial security, she was able to enroll in nursing school while continuing to work part-time. Isabella and Diego thrived in their new school, making friends and excelling academically. Most importantly, the family regained their dignity and hope for the future. The twins grew up knowing the value of hard work and compassion, often volunteering with their mother at homeless shelters and food banks. Isabella became a pediatric nurse, following in her mother's footsteps, while Diego became a social worker specializing in helping immigrant families. Maria eventually became head of patient care at a major hospital, never forgetting where she came from or the kindness that changed their trajectory. As for Marcus, the Christmas Eve encounter restored his humanity and gave his life new purpose. He reconciled with his own children, using the lessons he learned from Maria about unconditional love and sacrifice. Sterling Industries became known not just for its profits, but for its commitment to employee welfare and community support. Years later, when asked about that pivotal night, Marcus would say it was the moment he learned the difference between being successful and being significant. He had spent decades accumulating wealth and power, but it took seeing Maria's quiet dignity in the face of impossible circumstances to understand what true strength looked like. The story of Maria and her twins serves as a powerful reminder that heroes don't always wear capes or hold impressive titles. Sometimes they're the people who clean our offices, serve our food, or work the jobs we never think to notice. They're the single mothers working multiple jobs, the immigrants building new lives with nothing but hope and determination, the families who maintain their dignity, even when the world seems stacked against them. This Christmas story isn't just about one psycho's awakening or one family's rescue. It's about the transformative power of human connection and compassion. It shows us that we all have the ability to change someone's life, whether through grand gestures or simple acts of recognition and kindness. It reminds us that our success means nothing if we don't use it to lift others up, and that the people who serve us in invisible roles often display more courage and character than those in positions of power. In a world that often feels divided by class, race, and opportunity, Marcus and Maria's story offers hope. It demonstrates that when we truly see each other, beyond titles, backgrounds, or circumstances, we discover our shared humanity. It shows us that Christmas miracles aren't supernatural events, but rather the magic that happens when human beings choose compassion over indifference, action over apathy. The twins, Isabella and Diego, grew up to embody the best of both worlds. Their mother's resilience and work ethic, combined with the opportunities that Marcus's intervention provided. They never forgot the night they searched through trash for food, and they used that memory to fuel their passion for helping others facing similar struggles. This story reminds us that we all have the power to change lives, whether we're CEOs or cleaning staff. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is simply seeing them, recognizing their worth, and offering a helping hand. If this story inspired you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a comment about how you plan to make a difference in someone's life, and subscribe to Trillion Air and Love for more stories that will touch your heart and change your perspective. Remember, we all have the power to create Christmas miracles, not just in December, but every day of the year.